Hello, I am Joel Bloom at New Jersey Institute of Technology. We pride ourselves on being part of the Newark community and its advancements in technology, the economy, and the growth of the city. That's why we are very proud to partner with the Caucus Educational Corporation to produce Newark at the Crossroads right here on the NJIT campus. We hope you enjoy this special series.
Funding for this special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJIT has been provided by New Jersey Institute of Technology, Prudential Financial's Global Communications Department, Audible.com, Barnabas Health, Life is Better Healthy, TD Bank, Josh S. Weston, and by the law firm of Gibbons, P.C. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. And by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Hi, Steve Adubato coming to you from NJIT's Jim Wise Theater. This is Newark at a Crossroads. We're talking to the most interesting people we could find. They're just the most interesting people overall, and about to prove it right now. I want to introduce a good friend and someone who's been a mentor to so many of us. He's Dr. Clement Price, Board of Governors, Distinguished Service Professor, Rutgers University in Newark, who heads up an operation at Rutgers Newark. The official name of the center is?
The Institute on Ethnicity, Culture, and the Modern Experience, Steve.
A center not to be confused with an institute, which is even more prestigious.
There you go.
Clem, you know, and I mean that, and you know that for a lot of us, you've been a mentor, you've been there for so many of us. When I came up with this idea with Dr. Joel Bloom of doing this, I called you and I said, Clem, what do you think? And you said, let's do this.
Absolutely.
Why is Newark at a crossroads, and what is that crossroads about?
Well, periodically, Newark faces a crossroads, usually having to do with two things: demographic shifts and the perception of the city. And I think we are in the midst of both. Newark is becoming a browner city. It's becoming a more immigrant city. And the tales of woe that used to so much haunt Newark, the perception that Newark was dead, a failed city, that there was nothing really to do here, I think that is now a part of our contemporary past. Most people see Newark as a struggling but very complicated survival of a surviving city, not unlike some of the other, we call them now legacy cities. Who would have thought, 20, 25 years ago, that Brooklyn would be the place one wants to live in the five boroughs of New York? Who would have thought that Cleveland would reinvent itself as this really kind of hip, Midwestern town? And I think Newark is going through the same thing.
By the way, for those of you who do not know, Dr. Clement Price is not only the historian for the city of Newark, he's one of the greatest historians in this country and understands perspective on these issues better than most. Question. I've asked several people this, but your perspective on it's really important. 1967 rebellion, riots in Newark. This many years later, I'm not going to ask whether we've ever recovered. That's not the question I'm curious about. What is the enduring impact of those riots, even today, with all the positive things you just talked about?
The most enduring impact of the riots is that we now study the riots. They're not an aberration anymore. There's been nearly a generation of scholarship, some of it focusing on Newark, that raises this question: what happened to urban America in the 4 or 5 decades after the end of World War II? When you raise that question with respect to Newark, and it's been raised now for 30 years, and the answers are becoming prescient in the scholarship. Most scholars know that Newark's decline begins in the 1930s and accelerates in the 1950s and 60s. We didn't really know that, say in 1965, 66, 67. In fact, when Newark celebrated its 300th anniversary, we were about to celebrate the 350th, you never had a sense that the city was in trouble. But now we know that trouble is threaded throughout Newark's DNA, and the city has always pushed back and fought on and survived.
You know, we've always, if you read Bob Curvin's book, and you know it well, and we have Bob Curvin in the series,
Good.
or Junius Williams, who is part of the series as well. A lot of those books and others who write about Newark, a lot of looking for a savior. The next mayor of Newark is going to be a savior. Cory Booker is going to be a savior. Sharp James was a savior. In 1970, Ken Gibson is elected after a corrupt mayor. Hugh Adenizio goes to jail because he's all mobbed up and et cetera. Is that the wrong thing to be? And now Ras Baraka is the mayor of this city. Looking for a savior. Bad strategy?
Terrible vision. What saves cities is a sense of civic fellowship.
So hold on. People ask the question, can Ras Baraka turn it around? That's not even the right question.
That's not the right question.
Go ahead.
Why would we put Newark's foundational turnaround on one man or one woman's shoulder? So I think that what needs to happen, and you see some of this in Baraka's rhetoric during the campaign, when I become mayor, we become mayor. And I think what Raz was doing, and I think he did it successfully, certainly was elected, is begin to spread the responsibility for what becomes of Newark. So I think we may be entering an era in which people will reconnect to Newark, people who are in Newark reconnecting to their city, and people who left this city 40, 50 years ago, finding some spiritual way to identify with the city. When Newark turns 350 years old in 2016, we hope to use that occasion to interrogate the history of the city, to celebrate those things that should be celebrated, and to acknowledge the work yet to be done. And if we can do that, we will have shown not only ourselves, but the nation, that 100 years after Newark became 250, the city is now a mature part of the urban metropolis.
The superintendent of the Newark Public Schools, Cami Anderson, put there by the state of New Jersey, by Governor Chris Christie, will be part of this series. You know the public school system very well.
Yeah, and I know Cami very well.
How much of the success or the future of the city as we are at a crossroads is going to be dependent upon the success of those? I used to say 50,000 kids in the public school system. It's not that number anymore.
Right.
It's significantly less than that. How much of it depends upon the success of Cami Anderson and those who are running the Newark Public Schools?
Again, I wouldn't put too much on Cami Anderson's considerable
But we
shoulders.
keep doing that. We keep saying, how did that superintendent do?
Well, that's just...
Is that a setup?
That's poor visioning, and it might be a setup. Cami Anderson has perhaps the toughest job in Newark, and she is going to have to rely on people like you and me, let's call ourselves civic stewards, to provide some space and many opportunities for her to succeed. The demonizing of Cami Anderson is something that doesn't speak very well of the city.
Listen, we're not getting too inside here, folks, because this isn't just about Newark. It's about folks who try to change things. I want to ask you something. You've never held back talking about race or anything else. Cami Anderson's white. She is from New York City, from Harlem. She comes in from the state, and she proceeds to propose change. Now, forget about what the particulars of the change may be. But let's assume for a moment that she wants to improve the lives of the students of 37, 35,000, whatever it is, public school kids in the city. Do you believe that a significant degree of the opposition that she has gotten for trying to do that, close some schools, let some teachers go who didn't think they were doing a good job, whatever, consolidate, is a product of her being white and an outsider from the city? Some of it.
We've talked about race as long as we've known each other, more than half a lifetime, Steve. Race is always a proxy in Newark.
Is it always there?
It is always in the room. And I think with respect to Cami Anderson, the fact that she's perceived of as a white person, the fact that she's a white woman perceived of solely on those terms, may have made it very difficult for her to get things done. I was the chair of a task force that recommended Cami Anderson to the governor, to the mayor, and to the Commissioner of Education, at that time, Chris Cerf. The reason why my colleagues and I made that recommendation, it was clear to us over the course of the 3, 4, 5 months that we gathered and interviewed Cami and among other candidates, that she was more than white. In other
More
words,
than white?
Yeah, in other words, whiteness, like not unlike blackness, can be an essentialist way of saying someone is only white. And I would say that Cami is more than white. She is a talented, tough-minded, intellectually gifted, and daring educational leader. Such people, whether they're white or black, are oftentimes run out of town. I mean, I think the average tenure of urban superintendent, 2 or 3 years. So her whiteness might be a stumbling block, but it should not be the primary stumbling block. How does she interact with parents? Do the kids admire her? How has she faced up to Newark's almost obsessive suspicion of outsiders? For God's sakes, Steve, I'm an outsider. I'm from Washington, D.C.
But you were accepted.
I was probably accepted because the outsider-insider dynamic wasn't as much in play when I came to Newark in 1968 as it became, during that long 20-year period when Newark was declining. A lot of that decline was blamed on outside interests. I was already here. I was already committed to not only working here, but moving here and studying this place.
Isn't it ironic that a city that struggles in so many ways, we've got a lot of great things going, for us in the city, but that there'd be anything other than the attitude, hey, let's just take everyone and anyone who's got talent and ability, wants to invest, whether it's money or whatever it is. Regardless of where they come from, what color they are, isn't it amazing that it's anything other than that? Or maybe it's not amazing. Maybe it's more natural. I don't want to be overly philosophical here, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Where do we go from here to take advantage of our location, the airport? We're going to be talking to the head of United Airlines. Where do we go given the fact the NJ PAC is doing well, that Prudential is here, Panasonic is here. Downtown's happening, right, Clem?
Right.
How do we parlay this?
Where do we go from here? And I'm glad that you'll speak to Bob. For the longest time, Bob Curvin, Bob Curvin has said things are actually in place in Newark. We just have to connect the dots. And I'll leave this one thought with you. How is it that a city that has more university and college students than any other city in New Jersey doesn't feel like a college town, doesn't take advantage of the assets of having a university, 2, 3 universities.
NJIT, Rutgers, Seton Hall, Berkeley,
That's right.
Essex County College.
You go on and on.
Like
you go on and on. You can pick your sector: higher education, the arts, the humanities, architecture. I mean, I hope you have walked through Military Park.
Oh my God, we're Dan Biederman just here. So we don't feel enough like a college town?
No.
What would it take?
More college students on the streets of Newark. More college students making their way across Broad Street to go to NJ PAC. More college and university students visiting the glorious galleries of the Newark Public Library. More college students putting down a civic investment in the city. In other words, this city has been enormously good to me. And whatever little I can do to repay the investment the city made in me, I see it as my privilege and my duty as a resident of this town.
But you take people on tours all the time around the city. It's always fascinating. People say, they say, Clement Price took me on a tour, and I say, where did he take you? You take people through Branchbrook Park.
Sure.
You take people up in my old neighborhood, and
Sure.
I like to call it Forest Hill, but we never actually lived in Forest. Forest Hill is the richer section of the North Ward, where I actually lived in the North Ward. Take them up there. You take them a week, you take them all over the city. Are they mostly suburbanites?
I would say yes.
What's the reaction?
To be blunt, oh my, I had no idea this city had so many assets. And let me just mention one thing about those tours. The part of the tour that I'm getting the most out of, and because in many ways it's theater. If it's a minibus or a manageable number of people, we get off the bus, we walk across, what would that be? West Market.
Yes.
and we sit with President Lincoln, the Gutzon
Oh, my
Borglum
God.
statue. People used to bring kids would
You sit on Lincoln's knee.
You sit next to the
You sit on
president.
Lincoln's knee.
That was one of those Newark civic rituals, and we don't do it anymore. I do it because I think when you can show someone the power of art, or as you just put it so well, when you can look east and see how Newark rises up from the Passaic River, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's just one of the assets that the city has, and it needs to deploy that asset in its schools and its churches in the way we look at ourselves in the 21st century.
Dr. Clement Price, I was very glad that you took my call several months back.
Always.
And I said, Clem, you think we should do this? Joel Bloom thinks we should do it. And he said, who should we get together? And you gave us some great names. And I'm so glad you found the time to be with us.
Absolutely.
Because it would not be complete without you.
Thank you,
Newark is
Steve.
at a crossroads, and I'm glad you're with us.
You bet.
Stay there.
All right.
Thanks. We'll continue from NJIT right after this. Stay with us.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Cami Anderson is the superintendent of the Newark Public Schools, and we're honored to have her with us here on the campus of NJIT. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're doing this in the summer of 2014. The initiative that you've proposed is called One Newark. Got to ask you, can there be one Newark?
There has to be, right? Our kids deserve it. And the whole premise behind One Newark is that every kid in Newark, regardless of where they live and regardless of whether or not they've been designated with a disability or have an English language learner need, that every kid, every single kid is in a great school. And that we should be agnostic about whether it's charter public or NPS. And we should be
Newark Public Schools.
Newark Public Schools, and we should be fiercely focused on quality. And that's a pretty popular idea, and it's one that we're pursuing with lots of vigor, and lots of Newarkers are really excited. You know, they've demanded more for a long time, and we're responding with a real sense of urgency. And we know it's hard, but we know we're on the right track.
But here's the interesting thing. The other part of the show, I was just telling you, we talked to Dr. Price, Clement Price, who knows Newark better than most. And he's a big booster of yours, and there are others. But the folks who question, the folks who challenge, and do more than that, different people have different reasons. How hard have you found it to lead change in this city when it comes to education? And do you think it's dramatically different than any other city? Like say you're in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, which you know,
Sure.
different in Newark.
So change is hard at any time, and you know, breaking really bad habits of bureaucracies is really hard no matter where you are. And it is particularly hard in a city that has, you know, inherent mistrust of folks who are from the outside for reasons that I understand. So you have to lead with heart and with passion for the work. And when you start to get results, people in Newark, and particularly families, they just want what's best for their kids. And so the level of discourse and how difficult it is to manage change, I think, is to be expected. And it's our job as adults, as educators, to keep children in our hearts and our minds with every single decision, and to know that, you know, if we're having hard conversations, we're probably doing the hard work of moving the system. And that, to me, is what we need to keep in mind.
So those who push back and say, just slow down, you're moving too quickly. You can't be consolidating schools so that kids have to travel to go to a certain school. They need to go to the school that's closer to them. And you say, yeah, but there weren't enough kids to keep that school going, so consolidating saves money. Listen, I'm giving shorthand to the program. But it's more efficient, more effective, and they say slow down. You say?
I say if you are in a mediocre teacher's classroom as compared to a great teacher's classroom, you lose on average a year of learning, which means over 3 years, you are significantly behind your peers, and we can do something about that. So I'm telling you what I know families know. If their kid is in a poor performing classroom or a failing school, we are making lifetime decisions for that young person. So we cannot wait. Our kids cannot wait. Their futures are at stake, their lives are at stake, and America deserves to have every single kid in Newark at the top of their game and leading the way. And they are completely capable if we as adults are prepared to make tough decisions. So tell the families who know they want great schools, and families are not willing to wait, and they are demanding more. We had 15,000 Newarkers apply through the universal enrollment system. These are individuals.
Explain that to people who don't understand
These are, it's one-stop shopping for families who are seeking something different for their young people. You didn't have to apply. If you were happy where you were, you didn't have to apply. And out of 43,000 students, we had 15,000 applicants in our first year. That's more than any other city in the country.
What does that say, Cami?
That says to me that families are demanding excellence and that we need to provide excellent schools now, quickly, so that we don't lose a generation of kids because we were unwilling to make the tough decisions to put them at the forefront of what we need to do.
Where did, you're not born and raised in this city. Where were you born and raised?
Los Angeles. My father was an organizer in Watts, actually, and my mom was in family and child welfare. So we grew up in LA, where both were very involved in urban revitalization, family support, education advocacy. So I come by it honestly, even though it's on another coast. You know, some of these issues are universal. Let me ask this the right way. You're feeling for the city of Newark. You know, there are a lot of people who believe that you can't love this city and have a real feeling about it unless you're born and raised here. Like I was, don't live here anymore, live in Montclair. But a lot of folks are convinced you can't really, even Cory Booker caught a ton of crap, right? You weren't born here, you're in Harrington Park. That's a million miles away. You're in California, it could be the same thing, right? They question your commitment to the city. You say what to those folks? It's all about our kids, right? I mean, I've been involved in trying to move the needle and close the achievement gap and ensure that every single young person in this country has an excellent education since I was pretty young. I started my first teaching job when I was still in high school, and I have an absolute passion and fire in my belly to make sure that every young person gets what they deserve, which is an excellent school that delivers on their potential. And the fact that we do not have that now, to me, is the civil rights issue of our generation. Is it personal for you? 100%. Why? A lot of reasons, but you know, I have 11 siblings. My folks had 3, adopted 9, and my 9 adopted siblings, you know, came to our family in large part due to challenges beyond their control. And I saw a school system that didn't necessarily serve them well. Many of them overcame tremendous obstacles and are absolutely brilliant, but they shouldn't have to fight that hard. They should have all the same options that any other kid should. And right now, race and zip code dictate too much of what your educational experience is. And that strikes me not only as morally unfair, but practically very bad for this country, because we're missing out on so much talent and leadership that we are squandering because we are unwilling to topple the institutions that oppress folks and keep us from realizing our American dream by having everyone participate. You know, it's so interesting, you talk about oppression, people being oppressed. Those are disproportionately black and brown. People are black and brown. You understand this from a personal perspective? I do, because I see, you know, very much the effects of racism and race on how people are treated, on expectations, on economic disparities, on housing disparities, on the way in which folks are promoted. I mean, these are not, you know, shocking truisms in our country. And I have experienced it in my own family. I've seen it, and I believe it's grossly unfair, but it's also holding us back as a country because we haven't been able to square, you know, a fundamentally problematic history and past with a promising future. We can, though. We can if we actually put our mind to it, and that's what we're trying to do in Newark. And you got to work through the tough stuff. It's funny, a few minutes left, but you call it tough stuff. Some others might call it something worse than that. And I want to stay positive, but we talk about, you know, Newark, you know, at a crossroads. I've often wondered why at certain points you'd want to keep this job, and I'll be specific, and you know where I'm going. Sure. Why at certain points, when you are targeted on a personal level and things are said about you personally, you're a horrible person, that you have no sense of what people are really experiencing, and you're a white interloper, and you are just, you don't get it, and worse than that. And you're at meetings and people are screaming and yelling and cursing at you. And you say to yourself, I want to stay in this job and I want it to be reappointed by the governor because? Because as I walked into Weequahic High School at the end of last school year after a horrific tragedy where we lost a kid in cold blood in front of a whole bunch of his friends. And I walk through the halls with those young people and I see what they have to overcome to come to school every day. And then I think we're going to keep them in a failed school instead of doubling down and actually making things better for them. If we can ask them to be resilient, to keep getting back up, to keep their eye on the prize, then I can too. And I can actually do it with even more vigor because I know that what's standing between excellence at Weequahic and where we are now is simply a matter of will and our commitment to equity and excellence. And if we double down on that, I believe we can get there. And how dare I quit if I can't look that kid in the eye and say, you've got to keep going, then I can't do it myself. So they inspire me. Young people inspire me because their resilience and their ability to keep getting back up is why I do what I do.
You see something in those kids, don't you?
1,000%. And they are the future of this country. They are leaders in the making. And if we as educators and citizens and leaders in Newark are willing to double down and dig deep and make hard decisions, then we can put those young people in the White House. We can put those young people as CEO of companies. We can put those young people as diplomats or whatever their desires and passions are because we gave them such an excellent education that they've gotten what they deserve. And their resilience inspires me in my deepest, darkest moments to heights that you would not believe. And so that's what propels me, as well as just the unyielding belief that we can do this in my lifetime. Like I always said, before I part this earth, like I'm gonna be part of something much bigger than me that closes the gap between what we see as those who are of means and those who are not as far as educational equity. It's the promise of this country, and it's something we have to deliver on.
That's what Brown versus Board of Education was supposed to be about, and a hell of a lot more, right?
Right, and we have a long way to go, and why not have Newark be the place? Why not Newark? Why not now? Why not here in this moment? Why not? Why not us?
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJIT has been provided by New Jersey Institute of Technology, Prudential Financial's Global Communications Department, Audible.com, Barnabas Health, TD Bank, Josh S. Weston, and by the law firm of Gibbons, P.C. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. This program has been made possible in part by the FIDELCO Group.
Hi, I'm Eric. You might see me as an ordinary person, but I've been living with a brain injury for nearly 2 years. One of my struggles is short-term memory loss. At Opportunity Project, I'm given hope and support, and I've gained my confidence back through the job placement program. Despite my challenges, I have a reason to keep improving. Today, even though life has changed me, I believe that anything is possible.
If you have a brain injury, you don't have to face your road to recovery alone.